My parents left me at a homeless shelter to work on their marriage after my mom's infidelity, but now they'll have to find a shelter for themselves when the house gets taken away. I'm not someone who uses Reddit. My posts may sound weird because I don't really know how to make these kinds of posts. I only did it because my friends wanted me to vent somewhere anonymous, and after reading a couple posts so I wouldn't be so lost, I went ahead and did this. I'm 16 years old, and recently my family left me in a homeless shelter. My parents got tired of their pet, meaning me, and basically gave me up because they no longer had love or time for me. The worst part is the reason behind it. My mom, who is 46, and my dad, who is 50, decided to start a new life without me. They don't want me in their lives because I may or may not be the child of the affair. It's not even confirmed, but they won't risk checking. 2 weeks ago, my dad caught my mom having an affair with a mutual friend. After a lot of digging and denying, it came out that my mom had been having an on and off affair with him for the last 18 years. Yes, you read that right, maybe a Guinness World Record in infidelity. My mom, who always seemed so in love with my dad, was actually cheating on him. Mom and dad have been together since college. They were the ideal couple in everyone's eyes. Now it seems my mom was the ideal partner for two people at the same time. My dad was devastated, and my mom was a mess. She begged my dad to punish her and do whatever he wanted instead of leaving her. After a week of arguments, mom and dad decided they would start over, from zero, but without me. Why? Because they think I might be the daughter of the affair. I don't know whose idea it was to remove me from the family, but that's what they did. They didn't even do a DNA test. They just threw me away like I was taking up space. I was at home because school had ended 3 days earlier. After coming back from school, my parents invited me to a big meal, watched my favorite movies with me, bought me some gifts, tucked me into bed. I thought things were getting better. And the next night my mom took me for a drive and left me at a homeless shelter. My bags were already packed when we left that morning. My mom told me she didn't want to do this, but it was necessary to save her relationship and for dad to forgive her. That I was like a stain on the relationship and they couldn't just look the other way. I am what would remind my dad of my mom's affair, and that I should wait for results. If they were negative, everything would be even harder. To be clear, if they did a DNA test and I wasn't my dad's biological daughter, there would be no way to save that marriage. Throwing me out and acting like I never existed was their step toward healing. Maybe for some of you this makes sense. To me, they're two adults incapable of taking responsibility for their own problems, my mom for cheating, and my dad for either ending the relationship or going to therapy. But no, it was easier to find a scapegoat, and that was me. Mom literally pulled me out of the car and drove off. She told me not to bother coming back home. Not that I could anyway, because she left me in the next town over. I was alone in a strange place with only the shelter as an option. When my mom left, I went inside to inform them, and thanks to the help of one of the workers, who let me search for my grandparents online, I found their phone number. I didn't have my phone and obviously didn't remember their number by heart. I had to call several places until I finally got my grandpa's personal number. Here's the thing, my parents had legal problems some time ago, and out of fear that their house would be seized, they decided to put it in my grandparents' names. This way, if their assets were targeted, they wouldn't lose the house. I don't know all the details, but they did this before getting sued. Then they were sued, but it wasn't as bad as they thought. The problem is they never changed the ownership back because it had a cost and didn't seem worth it, especially if they got into trouble again. So my grandpa told me to come back to the house since it was under his name and he could kick them out legally if he wanted. I told him no, I didn't want to go back there and much less see my parents. I didn't want to return because I stopped feeling safe with them. After thinking a lot, my grandpa called an old friend of his who came to pick me up. I stayed with his family that night, and he put me on a flight to my grandparents' city the next morning. Now I'm here with them. My grandparents and extended family have invited my parents to their house for a party. What my parents don't know is that the party will be a confrontation. My grandparents have made some plans to punish them. They won't tell me what they are, they just ask me to be present while they put them in their place. I'm nervous about the confrontation and don't know what to expect. I've been going crazy, so I thought venting here would help. Edit, I've received comments asking why my dad was so sure I was the result of the affair. Well, he's sure simply because he believes the timeline of my mom's affair matches perfectly with when I was conceived. So my dad believes I'm not his daughter. They had been trying for only 2 months before my mom found out she was pregnant with me. My dad basically thinks it's impossible to get pregnant in just a few attempts, apparently that's what he was always told. He decided I wasn't his daughter, and the DNA test would just be a painful confirmation of what his mind already decided. My mom prefers this because she's completely focused on repairing her relationship, she doesn't want the marriage to end. As stupid as it sounds coming from someone who cheated for so long, she still enjoys being married and is desperate to save it, willing to do whatever it takes. And that whatever is me, her daughter. At the same time, if you're someone who can cheat for 18 years, doing this must be like daily bread. Yes, there is a possibility I'm not my dad's biological daughter, but I'm definitely my mom's biological daughter. I honestly can't understand how my own mother could do this to me. Some of you have attacked me for not considering my dad's feelings. I am considering his feelings. I know it's been terrible for him to find out about my mom's affair. He loved her for over 2 decades. I won't lie and say he was a horrible father to me, he was the best father until the moment he started doubting his paternity. But the thing is that even if he isn't biologically my father, I consider, or used to consider, him my dad. I'm just a teenager, but I can imagine many scenarios better than this. I don't know, kicking my mom and me out of the house, kicking my mom out alone, asking for a DNA test, or literally anything else. It's not my fault that my mom was unfaithful. I wasn't there telling her to do it. There's also a possibility that I am his biological daughter, but he doesn't even want to check. I don't want anything to do with the other man, even if he turns out to be my biological father. I don't want a father who's capable of sleeping with his friend's wife, but I also don't want a father who does what my dad did. I guess I just can't help feeling abandoned by the people I called my parents. They always told me that parents love their children unconditionally. Now I know that's a lie. And contrary to what they believe, I didn't ask my grandparents to do any of this. I was helpless. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I'm a minor, so I can't exactly get a place of my own. Nobody would rent to a minor anywhere. I simply couldn't suddenly stay in a shelter. I have school and expenses. Eventually I would have had to tell them who I was and where I came from. I was an emotional mess, and I panicked when my mom left me to figure everything out alone. I did the first thing that came to mind, I called my grandparents and asked them for help with a place to stay. That's basically everything. Update 1. I made this post when my anxiety hit its peak, and I just couldn't keep everything inside anymore. It was my friends who told me to go on Reddit and make a post. What my friends didn't tell me was how much support I would get here. It's honestly hard for me to believe that complete strangers online are giving me their love and support. Yes, I found some hurtful comments, but they were quickly drowned out by the good ones. I think my friends underestimated how much support I'd receive here. I know my friends will read this update, so here's a message for them: thank you for bringing me here. In the last 24 hours, countless people have sent me private messages telling me that I deserve better. Some of you shared your own stories and how being a child of an affair affected you in different ways. I replied to as many messages as I could and talked more deeply with some of you, and yes, it made me feel good to know I'm not alone in all this. Still, my heart breaks for you. At least I have my grandparents, some didn't even have that. A few trolls have been harassing me repeatedly, saying things like your dad shouldn't have to deal with an affair baby, and all that nonsense. Yes, I know he's going through a hard time. But guess what? I'm going through a hard time too. It sucks that some people can forget so easily that the children of an affair are innocent in all of this. Somehow, we always end up as collateral damage while the adults fight among themselves or try to fix their marriages. Again, I don't know about my dad, but at least my mom should have done better. She shouldn't have cheated and then abandoned her daughter to save her marriage. yes, my mom is at the top of the bad people list. But I also can't put my father in a much better place, since he also failed me. Okay, now that I got that out of the way, I'll talk about why I came back. I wanted to give you an update because people wanted to know what happened with my grandparents and parents. My cousins jokingly called it a party to cheer me up, which is why I called it a party. I'm fully aware there was nothing fun or celebratory about it, and that was exactly the tone of the party I mentioned. My parents were told it would just be a simple family gathering, but that there would also be a surprise for them. I think my mom expected my grandparents to give her money or something like that, because with everything I explained before, they didn't have much left: lawyer fees, property transfer costs, and a lawsuit they lost. I even overheard my mom arguing that she continued the affair for so long because she was depressed about all that. Fine, but why did she start it in the first place? Their first disappointment was when they saw me at the gathering. They had no idea I was there, much less that I was with my grandparents. I swear my mom turned white as a sheet the moment she saw me. My dad looked uncomfortable, but not nearly as terrified as my mom. She got so nervous that she literally asked me what I was doing at the party, and that's when my grandmother asked her why I wouldn't be at the party if I'm family. Mom had no idea how to respond because she must have hoped I hadn't said anything or something like that. But that would have been impossible. They left me in a shelter. It's not like I had money for a plane ticket. My grandpa had been so mad those previous days that he didn't want to bother with theatrics. He went straight into angry grandpa mode, which is not something fun to witness, at least not if you're the target. He literally yelled at my parents, asking what the hell they had been thinking, how they could be so deep up their own asses. I guess at that point my parents realized this was an ambush, not a party like they imagined. They weren't going to receive anything, or at least nothing they'd enjoy. They both started playing the victims, making excuses of all kinds and trying to make everything sound reasonable. Little by little, my grandmother, my uncles, aunts, and even my older cousins started yelling at them. They were cornered, and everyone was saying not so nice things, calling my mom a bad mother and wife, saying the infidelity was already bad enough without adding this, saying my father was a doormat and a bad person because being the victim of my mom's actions didn't justify what he did to me. It was a full-blown verbal massacre. My mom was a sea of tears, while my dad couldn't raise his eyes from the floor. He didn't say much after my grandpa called him a failed attempt of nature at creating a man. They also called my mom some colorful names I won't repeat here. Yes, but knowing she cheated, I guess you already understand what he meant. The yelling lasted a good hour before my grandfather delivered the final blow. He told my parents not to expect any money from him and much less any kind of help in the future. Everyone in the family also told my parents that from now on they didn't want anything to do with either of them. My parents, of course, thought it was unfair because no one else there in the room had gone through something like this and they couldn't understand it. My grandparents also made it clear that they planned to make use of the title of ownership of the house. My dad told them no, because that house had been bought with his money, but my grandfather said the papers said otherwise and that they had 30 days to move their things out of there or he would send someone to do it in a less pleasant way. I know my father wanted to keep arguing about that, but they kept being attacked by everyone and eventually they left. I've been with my grandparents because school doesn't start soon. That gives me time to get myself organized, because if all of this had happened while I wasn't on vacation, it would have been worse. I also think that's what pushed my parents to do what they did. It would be easier for them without having to explain why I hadn't gone to school. I haven't heard anything from my mom or my dad, and I'm not holding my breath. Update 2. I didn't think I'd come back with an update just one day later. I don't want my grandparents to worry more about me, so I've been trying to act strong and indifferent in front of them, but wow, I'm about to explode from anxiety. Last night, barely an hour after posting the last update, both of my parents sent me messages on social media. I currently don't have a phone and I'm using my grandmother's computer to write this and keep up with my social media. They both sent separate texts asking to see me. Apparently, they desperately needed to talk to me about everything. I immediately told my grandparents about the messages. They're still extremely angry at my parents, but they left the decision in my hands. they believe I'm capable of making the right decision for myself. The thing is, I don't want to see them. I don't know what they could say that would make me feel better. There is nothing in this universe that could make me feel better about what they did. There is no excuse, justification, or apology that could save them as parents. I also don't want to hear them play the victim in front of me to make me feel bad for them and talk to my grandparents on their behalf. So I don't think there's any reason at all to agree to see them. My answer has been that if they want to say something, they can do it through messages, but I didn't promise to read them or reply. That's the most they're going to get from me at this moment, and I'm being firm with them both. They're still in town as far as I can tell, but I'm not sure why they sent separate messages. It sounds like all this is separating them, but I don't care. My grandparents are still cursing them to the moon and back. My paternal grandparents also reached out to me because my father finally told them what was happening. They're not happy with my parents either and think the same as my maternal grandparents. They've contacted them as well and have offered help with anything they can. They live far away, so they're not here with me, but they can travel or do whatever I need to be there for me. I told them it's not necessary. I know how hard it is for them to travel with their health issues at the moment. The only thing that matters, what makes me feel good, is that they're here for me emotionally. Having your parents abandon you can create a strong feeling of loneliness and abandonment. Having the whole family on my side and supporting me right now counteracts those feelings. So far I haven't received a reply from either of my parents, and only my dad has read the message. I don't know whether to expect a response or if all of this will end in nothing, but that's the current state of my situation. Update 3. I know I've been absent for an entire week dealing with some things that needed my attention. I've had very important things to take care of, so I haven't had the time or mental energy to come into Reddit and update. At this point, a lot has happened. I got responses from both parents shortly after I made my last update. None of the responses went well for anyone involved. My dad was the first to respond. I expected that maybe he'd try to make me understand his perspective in person, but I didn't make it easy for him with my request, so he had to try through messages. He went straight to an apology about his part in what happened. I won't go into all the details of what he said because I feel it's too personal, but I can tell you he did it with the intention of softening me up and getting me to give him a chance to explain his side. He also told me he had decided to get a divorce. He was staying in a motel separate from my mom and said he didn't want to be with her anymore. Dad explained why they both sent messages separately and why they wanted to meet separately as well. Although I was glad my dad decided to move forward, I couldn't help but feel a little resentment toward him. I don't think he's doing this because it's the right thing. I think he's doing it because everyone has been calling him a doormat, including the comments on my posts, and that's the nicest thing I've heard people call my father. I didn't know if I'd respond to everything I asked him to tell me and everything I needed to say to him through messages, but I was a bit angry and did it anyway. I sent several messages, and my dad kept replying with sad emojis to each one and asking for forgiveness. Then he said something I honestly wasn't expecting from him anymore. He told me that I was the best daughter he could have ever had and that even if I weren't his, he was proud to have raised me. That made me cry a little because it was too much to handle, but it wasn't an emotional cry, it was frustration because I would have hoped to hear that before everything happened. Before talking to him through messages, I'd been thinking about something. I actually wanted to take a paternity test. Not for him, for me. I wanted to know. So I asked him if he was willing to take a paternity test. It won't change my stance toward my dad, but I want to know who my father is after all. It also won't change my stance toward the other man, but I need to know it as a form of closure. I also don't know if I'll feel at peace knowing my dad isn't my biological father, because I can't be sure my mom didn't sleep with other men, but at least it will be something. I already told you I also had a conversation with my mom. She started asking me how I was, that she had seen me doing well at my grandparents' house, and that she missed and loved me. I told her to cut the fake talk and say what she needed to say. Yes, I'm mad at both of them, but much more at my mom. I mean, when she left me near the homeless shelter, I practically begged her not to do it and kept repeating that I didn't want to lose my parents. But days had passed since then, and I had completely changed my stance. I didn't even feel pity for her anymore, mostly anger, and that's what I conveyed when we talked. We had a long conversation in which my mom begged me to fix things with her and help her get her family, my grandparents, back on her side because the divorce was going to be very lonely. I told her she deserved to be divorced and deserved to be alone after everything she did. She betrayed everyone around her and now has lost everything. I told her if she was looking for companionship or love, maybe she could continue sleeping with her lover or someone else. I know it's not nice for a daughter to say something like that to her mother, but it's the same mother who expected to leave me in a shelter and have me fend for myself. Well, I have managed just fine, but without her help. Her affair partner also walked away because he was offended when my mom ended things with him to get back with my dad. Her parents and family want nothing to do with her either, as they made clear at the party. So she's basically been abandoned by everyone she knows and needs an emotional support dog, which would be me. The truth is I feel zero empathy for her and couldn't feel any. I told her she was dead to me. I didn't want to hear from her ever again. I was going to stay with my grandparents, and they would become my legal guardians. My mom was desperate, writing everything in a hurry with tons of typos and half sentences because she hit send too soon. She begged me not to abandon her, but when I got tired, I blocked her on that social media account and all others where she could contact me. So yes, that happened in the last week. I haven't blocked my dad. I haven't made a decision yet, but he's mostly quiet. Sometimes he sends me a message, but I've decided not to respond yet. I still need to know if he's my biological father or not. So I'm keeping him in my life for now. Dad and I have already started the process to get the DNA test done and we're waiting for the results. My grandparents and extended family have been amazing. My cousins took me out to dinner and we had a great time. It cleared my mind for a while. I don't have friends here, so it's the closest thing to having a social group my age. I'm not complaining about my grandparents or my uncles and aunts, but teenagers need a group close to their age to talk and do stupid stuff with. Everything is still very heavy, but I will be moving here permanently. So I will start school here after summer break. That means making new friends, learning many new things, and adjusting to a different place. But I still talk to my old friends and try to do things. Soon my grandmother will take me to buy a new phone, and God knows how much teenagers need one. I didn't mention it earlier, but my mom offered to give me mine. She didn't bring it on the trip but promised to send it when she got there or bring it herself. She wants to use it as a peace offering, but I know deep down she only wants to use it as a manipulation tool. So I told her it wasn't necessary. Everything is saved in the cloud, so I just need to restore things on a new phone and that's it. Update 4. I knew life wouldn't go back to normal in just 3 months, and it hasn't. But on the positive side, I'm better, and I've started to have a life somewhat similar to the one I had in my old city. I'll tell you more about that later. Hi. I know some of you have been worried about me and curious about the DNA test, among other things. I have those answers, which is why I'm making this update today. I actually had the answers earlier, but you're only getting them now. School started again 2 weeks ago, so I've been a bit busy. New city, new people, everything different. I still haven't made friends. It's unfortunately not my special skill, but it's one of my goals for the first month of school, so I'm making a genuine effort to connect and interact with as many people as possible. I will join some school clubs, and surely I'll meet more people there. This is a bittersweet update. After my last post, there was a lot of drama with my mom. She was relentless in trying to get me to talk to her. She was even harassing my grandparents, regularly going to their house to make scenes, and I don't know how many days she stayed in town. She only stopped when my grandfather threatened to call the police. At least she had the sense to lower the harassment after that. The guardianship for my grandparents was settled about 2 months ago. It was necessary so I could enroll in school here. It was easy to resolve because my father agreed without arguing, maybe because he felt guilty, while my mother fought it a bit, but we got witnesses from the shelter saying that my mom practically dragged me out of the car to drop me off and abandon me. I'm also about to turn 17, so my testimony was very important when the judge asked me who I wanted to live with. Some of you told me I should keep seeing my mom because she needed my help. I can't see it that way. A mother who drops you and some of your belongings at a homeless shelter because she prefers her marriage to her daughter can do things to someone. I also don't think her feelings or emotional stability are my responsibility. Her life blew up badly, but I'm not going to take care of that or help her carry the burden. It's not my problem. Dad is still divorcing her, he already filed the papers, and now all their friends and colleagues found out what happened. Dad received a lot of backlash but some sympathy, maybe 90-10. My mom, however, only received curses and was called every name possible. She tried crying to my grandparents, and they didn't care in the slightest. The issue of the house was also a problem. My dad accepted it with a little more grace, although he wasn't happy about the situation. He agreed to leave. Hiding assets is a gray area from what I understand, so it was better to keep quiet and accept the losses. If they had kept the property and accepted what they were given, maybe today they'd still have the house. My mom took all of this much worse. She was devastated. Every time she called asking for the house back, she threatened to take them to court, but they had transferred the house voluntarily, and my grandfather could explain, stroking his beard, why they did that. They weren't going to get the house back and would probably get into more trouble. In the end, she accepted defeat because she moved out and hasn't filed any lawsuits, but you never know. My grandparents plan to sell it. It's on the market right now, and they plan to save that money for when it's time for me to go to college. They see it as karmic justice, that after everything I've been through, I get all of that from them. She believes she's the victim here because she acted based on my father's words, that it was the only way to save the marriage. And I believe him, that's why my father is not in my life. But that doesn't make her a better person. It actually makes her a worse one. Anyway, now I have to tell you what happened with my dad. Well, he is my dad. My dad was very sorry and inconsolable when he made a video call to tell me the results. Yes, I was emotional, but because of the weight of the feelings I had been carrying. I think he interpreted it as if I were happy to realize that I was his daughter. But it wasn't any of that. Yes, I've had my share of crying and feeling emotional these months, but I still had a weight on me that was pressing down. Well, that was lifted. Also, if I had to choose between having my dad or the other guy as my biological father, I preferred my dad, though not by much. It's just that I barely knew the other man, only as the family friend, now my mom's affair partner. Since he thought I was crying from joy, he apologized repeatedly and told me he would do whatever he could to make up for his mistakes, but I told him it was too late. Yes, my father went through hell, but I simply cannot forgive him for his role in all this. He himself ordered my mother to abandon me. What kind of person would I be if I forgave him? Exactly, my own mother. I told him I was relieved to know the truth, but there are things that cannot be repaired. I had already accepted that I would live with my grandparents and they would be my legal guardians. This was before they obtained guardianship, so there was nothing else to say. My dad cried a lot at that, but he accepted that he was in no position to protest. After that, we haven't spoken. I haven't blocked him, I don't know why, but I haven't received messages from him, nor have I written to him. In addition to the divorce, my parents are being sued by my grandparents for child support. It's a legal process separate from guardianship, but they hope to obtain it. My grandparents are not rich, but they can feed one more mouth without straining their finances, and I think it's morally right for them. That's why they sweetened the deal by saying that if my parents accept the child support terms, they won't be sued for child abandonment. They're lucky the shelter where it happened didn't file the report. I don't know why, maybe because I managed to contact my grandparents. Yes, but if I hadn't done that, they should have contacted Child Protective Services. They're lucky, setting aside the fact that they lost a house and now have to pay child support. Part of that money will go into a fund for me. They say maybe I'll need it the day I want to get married or buy my own house. It's early to think about a wedding, I'm only 16, almost 17, but after he said it, all I can think about is my grandfather walking me down the aisle. Update 5. My life hasn't changed much for an update, but people asked too many repeated questions to reply individually. I recently turned 17 and had more of a family celebration than one with friends. But I've started making some friends and I'm trying to adapt. One friend even traveled from my old city and stayed that weekend at my grandparents' house. My parents have finalized their divorce as far as I know, but that's all I can say about it. They're not in contact with anyone in the family, at least no one I talk to, and I don't know much. I also don't imagine what else I could know about that. I know people have asked for more information about the divorce, about whether it was an at-fault divorce or not, but I don't know, and from what I've researched it doesn't seem relevant. They don't have many things to divide between them after losing the house. The house is already sold and the money is in a bank account waiting for when I go to college. I'm not a millionaire, it's just a small suburban house that my grandparents got a good price for. My parents will pay child support until I turn 18, and that is also being saved in a different bank account. There'll be two types of funds with different goals, as I explained in my previous post, and that's it. My mother is blocked, and even though my father isn't, I haven't heard from him in a long time. Sometimes he sends a message, but I rarely respond because I forget or simply don't want to. I've started to feel emotional detachment from both of them.